The Dodge Viper was a bit of a dinosaur that was able to outlast the asteroid known as modernization and digitization. This brutal relic of an old school era of performance literally would take on European exotics multiple times the price and win. Just look at the Gen 5 ACR setting track records everywhere. It was a car that was not properly appreciated during its time, but years later, as everything feels like you're interfacing with a giant 5,000-pound calculator with touchscreens everywhere and 15-stage intelligent traction control, we now seem to be loving the Viper for what it stood for: old-fashioned mechanical performance. There's other cars that have done this too, the Ford GT, the Lexus LFA. They couldn't sell them easily when new, but years later, demand and market prices reflect the respect they deserve. Welcome to Exhausted Reviews, enthusiast-focused car reviews. My name is EddieX, and today we are going to be spending time with this 2017 Dodge Viper GTC. So what exactly is a Viper GTC? It was Dodge's true one-of-one customization program for the hand-built Viper, resulting in over 50 million different possible combinations. They offered 16,000 different exterior paint colors, including matte finishes, 24,000 different custom stripe options. You had 11 different wheel designs, 16 different interior trims, 7 available aero packages, 3 different brake packages, and 4 different kinds of suspension available. This would result in custom vehicles like this, truly one of one. You could not order an identical spec to somebody else in the same year. And when you got your car, you would also get this crazy cool 118 speed form of it. This one here specifically has been finished in Ferrari Rosso Fuoco paint, and I mean, it looks absolutely amazing. In terms of the powertrain, the Viper is how you make a 6.5-liter V12 and a Lamborghini Aventador look puny in comparison. This has to be one of the largest displacement production engines I can think of in a modern vehicle. A 8.4-liter naturally aspirated V10. In 2015, they upped the power by 5, so it makes 645 horsepower and 600 pound-feet of torque. Now, it is a massive displacement V10, so redline is only 6,400 RPM, but that is a stupendous amount of power and torque. It is only available with a Tremec 6-speed manual. They never offered it with any sort of automatic transmission, and of course, it is pure rear-wheel drive. Let's talk about the exterior design of the Gen 5 Viper. This specific one is finished in a very special paint. Like I mentioned, one-of-one factory Ferrari Rosso Fuoco paint. If you order that paint color on a Ferrari, it's like a $30,000 option. And I gotta say, it looks truly magnificent on this Viper. With the GTC program, the customization was really impressive. And it's beyond just the paint color. You can change aero packages, the mechanicals like I mentioned. So this one here has the 2-vented hood. There's also the 6-vented hood available, and it's got some nice tasteful carbon fiber on it. in comparison to the ACR, I would say something like this is like a touring version. It's a more elegant, classy version of a still brutal muscle supercar, right? The Viper proportions are pretty iconic. The tremendously long hood that housed that absolutely enormous V10. It looks like a snake up front. Just something about the styling evokes that. And around back is even more obvious because the brake light has the Viper snake logo on it and it lights up. It might be a little bit childish, but I absolutely love it. The Viper has aged so well. I mean, this car is 7, 8, 9 years old this generation at this point, which is kind of mind-blowing to me, but it still looks so fantastic. Now let's check out the interior. The interior of the Gen 5 Viper took a massive step up compared to the previous generation. We have nice leather covering all sorts of surfaces. This one specifically has the top tier Laguna leather finished in a sepia saddle tan brown with the matching Alcantara headliner and matte finished carbon fiber trim all over the interior. We have a 8.4-inch Uconnect screen, 7-inch digital cluster there. The pedal box is very tight and small, kind of offset to the left. So ergonomics still aren't fantastic, but at 6'3", I actually fit pretty comfortably in here. It's a very snug and cozy feeling cabin though. We also have the upgraded Harman Kardon sound system, and another unique special touch for the GTC is you can get a custom plaque here. So this says custom designed by One Viper Bite, hand built in Detroit, Michigan, USA 2017. So added special touches on the inside. With that, let's step out carefully over the very wide door sill that has the quite hot exhaust routing underneath it. We're going to grab the owner Brian, go for a drive, talk about what it's been like to own a 2017 Viper, and then I'm going to take it for a spin. All right, so we're in the car now with Brian, the owner of this fantastic 101 Viper GTC. We've known each other for quite a long time now, actually.
Yeah.
Finally getting to spend some time with you in the car. What has it been like to own this thing since new?
I mean, it's been such a special experience. You know, I've had it since 2017. I ordered it directly from Dodge when they announced the end of production, and I was actually in a 2013 GTS at the time. So still same generation, Gen 5. But I enjoyed that ownership experience so much, even though I was the third owner. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it never really fully felt mine. So I just thought, man, this is my opportunity to own one the way I want it, brand new. No one else has touched it. And I mean, yeah, every time I take it out, it's just such a special experience. People love to see it on the road. People love asking questions about it. And then the driving experience, as you've seen, is just sort of unique. It's second to none in my opinion. So,
And you've put 18,000 miles and smiles on this thing, so you've probably enjoyed it, tracked it.
Absolutely.
Road trips, right, like canyons and so forth.
Absolutely, yeah. Done pretty much everything. I road trip it. It's a pretty good GT car. You know, it's not going to be, you know, the pinnacle of luxury.
Yeah,
but,
it's not meant to be a Bentley.
Yeah, but with the electronically adjustable suspension, it's you know, really pleasant. I think on a decently long drive, and then yeah, I love the track. I managed to do at least 4 or 5 track days a year.
Heck
and
yeah.
And it's plenty capable on track. Don't let anybody fool you. You don't need an ACR
Extreme,
no.
right? Yeah. We're not discounting the capabilities of that, but even a regular Viper is a beast.
Absolutely.
So tell us about ordering a GTC, because I feel like a lot of people don't know what. I knew there was a custom paint, probably because I saw yours, but I didn't realize it was such an extensive option to customize these things.
Yeah, I think, you know, Dodge could have definitely done a better job of advertising it, because unless you were already in the Viper community, it wasn't really well known what the one-of-one GTC experience actually meant. And, you know, in a nutshell, you could basically Frankenstein your own Viper. Any option that was available on any of the trims, you were able to combine. And the only caveat was it had to be unique. It had to be a one-of-one. So if you came up with a combination that somebody else had done, they would respectfully say, nope, you have to change something to make this unique. Otherwise, it was not
true one-of-one. Okay.
Yep.
But so this one specifically is a GTS interior. Like, what exactly, how did you configure yours?
Yeah, that's a good question, because it's a little confusing.
Yes.
So my car started out as a GTS. Okay. So I said, I want all of the luxury options that come on a GTS.
Okay.
You know, the extra sound deadening, the 18-speaker Harman Kardon sound system, the top of the line GTS Laguna interior with the Alcantara headliner. Because I knew I wanted a car that would be comfortable for the road and good on road trips. And then after that, I thought, okay, well, I am a bit of a track junkie and I love my weekend, you know, canyon carving. So I want something that's a little bit more capable than the GTS. So I went ahead and added the TA 1.0 Aero.
Okay.
Because there's also the TA 2.0 Aero.
Yeah.
So 1.0 Aero, it has the track pack brakes as well, which is the upgraded, you know, aluminum hat, stop tech,
they're still
slotted
stop
rotors.
techs.
Yep. So it's, I like to think of it as sort of halfway to a TA 1.0 and
1.5.
Yeah, 1.5 with a GTS driving experience. So.
But you could have done, like you told me, you could have done ACR Extreme Aero with GTS interior. Like
Absolutely.
you literally could have done all of those things.
Yeah, so this car pretty much has almost every option ticked in terms of optional extras. The, you know, carbon fiber matte finish
It's a lot
interior
of
pieces.
Carbon trim.
Yeah, and it's an expensive package, and now to find these on the used market, good luck.
Really? Whoa, is that a Nürburgring outline?
It is, and that there's a couple of little
Easter eggs?
Easter eggs in this car. There's the Nürburgring over there, which is in honor, of course, of the Gen 4 ACR that held the record for an extremely long time until it was dethroned by, I think it was the 918.
I think so.
I think the 918 dethroned it like 10 years later,
which
4 times
is
crazy,
probably
you know?
More than 4 times
There's a Laguna Seca in, oh gosh, now I'm forgetting where it is. There's Laguna Seca in here somewhere as well, which is pays homage to the TA 1.0, holding the production car lap record at Laguna Seca for a while as well.
And then ACR, and the 128 special.
Yep. So there's a couple of little things in this car, you know, that some people might find a little gimmicky, but you know,
cool.
Viper enthusiasts like me love it.
It's cool. It's cool. Do you ever feel like you regret not ordering an ACR when you're on the track, things like that?
You know, only recently did I start to regret not ordering an ACR.
Because you looked at the market price?
No, you know what? I never bought this car with the intent to make money on it. And look, I already had somebody offer me $215 for this car, and I paid $136 sticker on it. You know, if I was in the business of making money on cars, well, I could have done that with this car and made out really well. So that's not why I regret it. I just think that now that I'm a bit older, I've added more cars to the garage, I have more toys, that I wouldn't mind having an ACR as just the track weapon. And I mean, I just imagine this trim with the nice interior and, you know, the paint and then just that beautiful aero on it. And I'm like, man, I probably should have done it. But to be honest, I had no business buying this car when I bought it back in 2017. I was making maybe a third of the amount of money that I make now. So it was a
bit of a stretch.
Bit of a stretch. So you can imagine that spending 136 versus 160, because that's what it would have cost to add the ACRE package. That was just a little bit too far out of my comfort zone. Today, I would do it in a heartbeat. Absolutely.
Yeah. That's the thing a lot of people don't seem to get, right? It may sound like, oh, you're already spending 136, what's another extra 30? But you think about percentage-wise and the position you're in, it is a lot. So
absolutely.
What made you pick Rosso Fuoco?
I had actually seen this paint job on a friend of mine's F12 TDF. And we went to a Cars and Coffee together, and he had just ordered the car. We went for a drive that weekend, and I mean, just sitting in the sun, it was so beautiful. And I had already said that I wanted to do actually the Dodge factory color, which was Striker Red, which is sort of similar to this. But unfortunately, they didn't offer Striker Red in the final years of the GTC program. I think it was because it was a very expensive paint job. It was very hard to do right. And some of the owners, I think, of the early Striker cars wanted it to remain sort of exclusive. So that wasn't an option for me. And I saw Rosso Fuoco and I was like, man, it's just different enough, but still looks, I think, really appropriate on this car. So
it's kind of like the classy Viper Touring. And it works like red over tan, green over tan are those colors that just, It's a good combination.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It plays a good fake Ferrari, I think.
It'll demolish most Ferraris around a track at any turn, right?
This is
That's
true.
the other thing. I hope this is the forever car for you.
Absolutely.
It has to be, right? Like, they're never going to make anything like this again.
I mean, look, the reality is that if I were to sell this car, well, I just don't know what I would get that would match the experience.
You'd have to spend $250,000 on an ACR that's also a special one-off.
Exactly.
And it's going to be $250,000.
Exactly.
And it's like...
And, you know, living in Los Angeles, I mean, you see Huracans and, you know, 488s and F8s
McLarens,
and
all
McLaren
day long.
720s. And, I mean, and those are all great cars. And sure, I could sell this and go buy one of those, but to me, they're just not this special. This car has such a presence on the road. It has such a unique driving characteristic. And I don't know, it just sort of comes alive underneath you when you start pushing it in a way that I think almost no car can match. And that's what I love about it. It's super rewarding to drive when you get it right. And it doesn't let you build any bad habits. And that's something that I've learned.
It'll still bite you, right?
It'll still bite. And, you know, trust me, when I went into turn 2 at Willow Springs once with a little bit too much speed, I made the classic mistake of putting the clutch in because I scared myself. And what do they tell you in racing school? You always want to be either on the brakes or on the power, never in between. And guess what? This car gave me a nice little snap of the rear. I had a little moment to myself.
Change your pants.
Ask me if I've ever made that mistake on track again. Never again.
Never again.
And that's what I love about this car. Like when I bought my first Viper, the car that was in the lead for the contention was the 458 Italia, which that car, oh my gosh, it's just fantastic. And my favorite thing about the 458 is the steering.
Yes.
But I think right on par with that, the steering in a Gen 5 Viper, it's almost telepathic. I mean, just you point it where you want it to go and it just goes.
It helps when you have 295s up front and 355s out back. I think for a bit it had like the largest contact patch of a production car for a long time.
For a very long time.
Yeah.
I think just was it the SVJ that took it
or
over,
something. Or maybe a Chiron.
I think it was a Chiron, actually. Because I don't think the SVJ had as wide front tires.
Well, again, the two cars we just mentioned are literally 5 times, 5+ times the price point.
And then the other thing I love the most about this car is this gearbox.
Oh, the Tremec?
Oh man, it's so
You're
good.
instantly comfortable.
Yep.
That's what I loved about this. You just hop in and you go.
Absolutely. It feels almost.
And you saw me earlier when I was doing a couple of drives. There's a massive grin on my face. He passed me going the other way, and I'm just like, ah!
Massive grin. I was like, he is having a good time.
Oh.
And yeah, I mean, these cars can be intimidating, but they are so rewarding to drive. And you really gotta screw up to get it wrong in this car. Like that's been my experience. It does not surprise you. If it surprises you, you need to go take a driving course or a racing school.
I have a theory on that. I think it's because it's just mechanical.
Yeah.
And it's not masking you and kind of giving you band-aids and handicaps with all the electric fancy stability control and traction this and fancy dampers that modern cars have.
Absolutely.
Which in those things, like in a 720S, if you mess up, you are so beyond the limit in an insane way that you're screwed.
Yep.
But with something like this, mechanical, there's no like safety net that makes you feel like you're the superhero and not at risk.
Absolutely. I just absolutely love getting in this car on a road like this. It's so good.
Oh my goodness.
And the side exhaust when you've got the windows down against a mountain or like a barrier. Oh man, it's so good.
Tunnel runs in this.
I absolutely adore this car and I'm never ever getting rid of it. Ever. The other thing about this car is it's been so reliable. I think.
Oh, that's a really good point. Yeah. How's the ownership from that regard been?
Man, we're at 18,000 miles, hard driving, multiple track days. I've had, the only thing I had happen once at a track day was one of the vents on the hood shot past me going down the straight at Willow Springs. But other than that, this thing's been bulletproof. I'm still on the original clutch.
Okay.
No issues with the transmission.
Yeah.
I mean, it has been absolutely solid. I've had no problems.
How about consumables and maintenance? About how much do you think it costs?
You know, pretty reasonable because, you know, the Viper architecture's remained pretty much the same.
Yeah.
It's obviously evolved.
Yeah.
You know, the engine has evolved. The you know, some of the components have evolved. But for the most part, the big ticket items have remained mostly the same.
Okay.
So, you know, it's got the Viper tax,
Yeah.
obviously, especially now with it being discontinued and it being hard to find parts. But it's certainly not the worst I've ever experienced.
Okay.
So I'd say right in the middle.
Okay.
Not egregiously expensive, but, you know, not cheap either. So.
Except certain parts apparently are getting expensive. How much you say hoods go for now?
Oh man, they're going for north of 30 grand right now, I believe. Yeah. So that's an item you don't want to mess up, which is, you know,
is
very
it carbon
similar.
aluminum mix or something? Or
No, it's
is it full carbon?
Full carbon. The hood, the deck lid, you know, the roof,
Yeah.
the deck lid, all carbon fiber.
Yeah,
The doors are stamped aluminum,
Okay.
so very lightweight. The firewall's magnesium. I mean, there
are some exotic materials
are some
in this
exotic
thing.
materials
Yeah.
in this car. So, you know, when people, you know, hear that, they're usually surprised.
What?
But they were really thoughtful when they designed this car. And another thing that surprises people is they think this car is very heavy. And
It's
it's not.
not.
It weighs about 3,300,
3,400
3,400
Yeah.
pounds. So it's very light.
Yeah. By
So-
today's measures, I mean,
Yep.
that's like 60% of the curb weight of a BMW M5. Literally, right? An M5 is what, 5,400? Like,
Absolutely.
Ah.
And then, you know, you throw 600 pound-feet of torque. That's another thing that now you know you've got a Viper guy going.
yeah.
A lot of people criticize well, why do you need such a big engine just to make 645 horsepower? I don't think people understand what 645 naturally aspirated horsepower is, and then 600 pound-feet of torque.
I know.
This car, you know, this engine, I mean, at any gear, you've got the power.
Yeah.
And it's linear,
Yeah.
and it's consistent,
Yeah.
which when you want to go fast on track, you want something that's
Want the
linear, predictable,
Predictable, you
consistent.
don't be surprised.
And if you happen to get the gear wrong, because, you know, you're in the heat of things,
Yeah.
you don't have to worry in this car because you just put your foot down and boom.
And the other thing I always think about is when it's such a massive engine, it's low stressed.
Yep.
So that's how you get reliable horsepower. You don't want a little tiny motor screaming its head off, which arguably the Z06 is a little bit like at the ragged
Yeah.
edge. But that's also why people take these and they boost them, and you get 1,500, 2,000 horsepower twin turbo
man.
Vipers, which are another level of insanity, right?
These days, I've got friends pushing over 2,000.
Oh my
And
gosh.
it's just insane. And
Yeah.
and you don't have to upgrade the internals until you get into those powers.
Yeah.
I mean, I could strap 2 turbos on this now and probably make like 1,200 horsepower,
Casual.
all on stock
internals.
Don't have to do anything.
Overbuilt. The other car that I think of that was like that is the Ford GT.
Yes.
Where you could running the quarter mile, half mile, standing mile cars, way more power. They were just so overbuilt.
Absolutely.
Which means they're like bulletproof essentially. And that's a cool thing to have.
Yeah, so when people say such a big motor for what, I have a long list of reasons why
long list.
it's a great idea and
Yeah.
a brilliant engineering decision.
Absolutely.
And you know, I'm sure you've heard the age-old thing that this motor was based on a truck.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, I've had so many conversations with ex-Chrysler engineers. I've had many conversations with Ralph Shields. I promise you, the Viper's motor was not based on a truck motor. The only thing that it shared,
Yeah.
was the blueprints for the bores.
Okay.
That is what I've been told
Okay.
by very reputable people
Yeah.
who have worked on this car. So take that with a grain of salt.
Guarantee everybody saying that doesn't own a Viper,
Yeah.
so it's okay. Well, thank you so much for trusting me with the car, letting me drive
course,
it.
man.
Fantastic. It's been so much fun spending time with this. It's an iconic American sports car and I think the pinnacle of all the generations, right? Like, it's sad they never continued on, but at least we have all these Gen 5s.
Absolutely.
All right.
And this one's not going anywhere, man.
Nope.
So you're welcome to drive it whenever you want.
Appreciate it. Check out One Viper Bite.
One
on
Viper
Instagram.
Bite.
And
Yep.
you want to plug the other one too?
These days, honestly, I post more on my personal, which
Yeah.
is just Brian J. James. I do more stuff there these days. But if you don't care for motorcycles or you know, any artful photography, One Viper Bite is where
car
I
one.
only post car stuff. So, you know, pick your poison. So
They really don't make cars like this anymore. And honestly, even when this thing was new, it was unlike anything else out there. During this era, we were already starting to get hybridization, downsizing, computers taking over. And while the Gen 5 Viper does add some civility to the Viper platform, I mean, the previous generations had a reputation for a reason, it was still relatively bare bones, right? I mean, we have traction control, it does have a multi-stage traction control. We have stability control and ABS because they legally had to. But it was still just a brutal, raw machine, and it still feels that this way. If anything, it's even more exaggerated in today's day and age when we're driving sports cars that have 17-way traction control and all the fancy drift controls and the latest and greatest of all this technology. That, yeah, makes them fast. They can be fun in their own way, but it's missing engagement, it's missing emotion. And the Viper, the Gen 5 Viper, has emotion. There's the personality of this engine. Oh man. The specs are not the most insane by today's day and age, especially in terms of output, right? You have family sedans making this kind of horsepower because of electrification. But it's the way it delivers power. It doesn't rev very high. 6,400 RPM redline. But it's just this linear mountain of torque and power and noise. A wall of noise. It doesn't have the shriek of some of the other V10s out there, whether a Lamborghini or a Ferrari V8 revving up high. It just has this different kind of muscly grumble to it. And the gearing is also exceptionally tall. That's something else I noticed immediately. You can do 60 plus miles an hour in first gear. It's like 62 or 63 miles an hour in first gear, which helps 0 to 60 time. It is in the low 3, second 3.4. Second gear is also stupendously tall. So, I mean, in the canyons here on the track, you can just sit in second, third gear. The Tremec is fantastically weighted, spaced. You get comfortable very quickly. The clutch is not excessively heavy, in my opinion. The pedal box is very tight and kind of spaced off to the left. Oh, thank you, Jeep, for letting me by. So if you have bigger feet, it is a relatively tight pedal box, but you get comfortable so quickly. Strong brakes, communicative steering. This is still good old-fashioned steering, right? So you have steering feel and communication. Now, the driving position is very unique, right? Because you're sitting like on the rear axle and you have that tremendously long hood. Honestly, like, it reminds me of the Mercedes SLS AMG, which also has that very, very long hood. You sit so far back. But somehow with the dimensions of the car, you can still very accurately place where it is. It's confidence inspiring. It's capable. You learn to trust it. Like Brian was saying, it'll still bite you if you're not careful, but you have to be doing something pretty silly for the Viper to bite you, especially leaving the traction and things on right now. In a real-world situation, honestly, you don't need an ACR. An ACR would be extreme. I mean, there is an ACR extreme, but it would be uncomfortable. I really like the way this one has been optioned. It has enough of the track capability. We have the underhood brace. We've got upgraded brakes. You have adaptive dampers, but it has the nice interior. This leather is actually holding up very, very well. This interior, I mean, some of the stuff shows its age, like the center cluster there, but it is still holding up pretty well. And I'm surprised that I'm actually pretty comfortable in here. I think I have a tunnel coming up, which means I gotta put a window down. When I drove a Gen 4 Viper ACR last year, I was like, oh, I want one. I want one. I went and looked at Gen 5 Vipers and immediately was a little bit sad based on the prices. When these came out, they were struggling to sell, like I mentioned, right? They ended up lowering the price and added like a base model. For some reason, the appeal wasn't there in its era. It wasn't appreciated. Today's day and age, Vipers, Gen 5 especially, have universally gone up in price. Average transaction prices are above MSRP. You have the top of the market with the ACR, ACR Extreme, and those special commemorative editions. A clean low mile one of those that hasn't been modified, I mean, those are $250,000 cars. Even your regular ones, that's a $150,000 car. It takes a pretty high mileage or maybe a bad history car to drop into the low $100,000 range. Now that being said, if you compare it to the ZR1 of that era, the C7 ZR1, those also command a pretty high premium. I think as time is going on, we're gaining an appreciation for what that generation of car was like. A couple of factors, they're not making them like that anymore, but also when these came out, it was the poster car for many people. I was in high school when the Viper came out like this, and it was one of those aspirational, really cool sports cars. And now as my generation, people around our age are getting to the point where we have the financial capabilities to buy one of these. If we weren't able to buy one when it was new, that's also maybe driving up the price point. I think that is absolutely a factor. I mean, this thing is just, you can't be upset driving this. And the other thing I want to mention is the weight. Like we discussed, around 3,400 pound curb weight, depending on wheels and some of the other option packages, how it's configured. So 3,400 pounds and nearly perfect 50-50 weight distribution yields a car that wants to dance. It still feels nimble. When compared to a Porsche GT3, I have said before that like a GT3 would be a scalpel and the Viper is still a little bit of a hammer. But it's like one of those like precise like ballpoint hammers maybe, right? It still is so easy to drive. It is so easy to drive and it's so rewarding and fun. And just shows the good old-fashioned mechanics. Massive tires, good suspension, heaps of power and torque, a fantastic transmission, pure rear-wheel drive, communicative steering. All of these ingredients give you a sports car experience that can last the test of time. I say in 20 years' time, this Viper will still be a tremendously fun experience to drive. It's going to keep aging well. They're never going to make something like this again. The prices that Gen 5 Vipers command are worth it. It deserves it. And I think the appreciation of these vehicles will only continue to go up. And I'm glad that we have the opportunity here to share Brian's vehicle and talk about the customization program that was available, getting a one-of-one Ferrari paint and the different things you can choose to really truly make it your own car. And I think he's a fantastic example of an enthusiast owner who has kept his car, put miles on it, driven it, used it like it was meant to be used, track days, road trips, canyon drives. And I'm so appreciative of the opportunity to get to also experience this and make this video with it. I hope you guys enjoyed this review of the Gen 5 Viper GTC. Thanks for watching.